Okay, I'm going to get started by welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung Yu. Nice to see all of you guys here. Welcome to everyone joining online as well. Today is our group learning program where each Sunday and Wednesday I come together and help students to be able to understand the path to enlightenment. On Sundays, what I do is I guide you in meditation, and then I share a talk afterwards to help you guys to understand the path to enlightenment. Today, we're actually in chapter 20 of this book because each Sunday I go chapter by chapter. Chapter 20 is titled Animal to Human, the Evolution of our Consciousness. This is where you're learning about how what you're doing on this path to enlightenment is becoming a better and better human being, shedding your animalistic instincts. And we learn about the 5 realms of existence and understanding the cycle of rebirth and these types of things as well. So welcome to all of you guys here. Welcome to everyone joining online as well. If you'd like to join for meditation, the way that I start this is with some chanting to be able to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. You're welcome to chant along if you like. Just keep in mind that this isn't a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer. It was used during the lifetime of the Buddha as a way to commit the teachings to memory. But nowadays we use chanting as a way to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. I'll come in with some guidance after the chanting. Then there'll be a period of time of quietness where we're all meditating together, everyone here at the temple and everyone joining online. And then we'll come out of that with some more chanting. And then that's where I'll start today's class. So you're welcome to take whatever position is comfortable for you, and I'll come back in with the chanting, and I'll be back in with the guidance after that. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakewa Putang Mahakewanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakewata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakewato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakewa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vichacharanang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusrang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. ระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเกวาโพตังมหาเกวันหังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวตาธัมโมดามังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิจาจารณังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโอโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, good evening to all of you guys. Nice to see everybody here. Welcome. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Each Sunday and Wednesday, I get together with students here to help them to understand the path to enlightenment using this book titled Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. I use this as our guide to gradually walk you guys through to be able to help you understand all the foundational teachings of the Buddha that it takes to be able to get to enlightenment. There's other courses, classes, retreats, and things like this, other programs as well. But on Sundays and Wednesdays, it's this particular program where I'm gradually walking students through little by little. Today, we're in the topic of Chapter 20, which is titled Animal to Human, the Evolution of Our Consciousness. This is where you're going to be able to understand why the Buddha taught this cycle of rebirth in these 5 realms of existence and all the other teachings around these types of things. The individual who we refer to as the Buddha figured out 2,500 years ago how to get to enlightenment. He figured out how to get to the point where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you no longer experience any discontent feelings. You won't experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this can be eliminated from the mind. There are certain teachings that he actually taught that are going to help you to be able to move the mind to this enlightened mental state. As part of his collection of teachings that he taught in order to help people to get to this enlightened mental state, he also taught this topic of the cycle of rebirth and helping you to understand these 5 realms of existence, of how the mind moves through these different realms and how you're experiencing continuous rebirth over and over. None of the teachings of the Buddha are based in belief. You should never believe any of the teachings, including the cycle of rebirth in these 5 realms of existence. Instead, the Buddha taught these things because they're actually independent independently verifiable. He's not explaining to you the way the world should be, that if everybody follows a bunch of rules and commandments, the world's going to become a better place. Instead, he's teaching you the way the world is. And by understanding the way the world is, you can actually train your mind to get to a point where you get to this enlightened mental state, where you're no longer experiencing any of those discontent feelings. The cycle of rebirth in the 5 realms of existence is something that students usually approach when they're much further along in their journey to enlightenment. That in volume 11, chapter 105, I have 17 different criteria that's helping you to be able to understand how to independently verify the cycle of rebirth. But it's in chapters 105, volume 11 for a reason, because it's usually at that point where someone's ready to kind of approach this. But here in this particular book, in this particular program, I dedicate this chapter to be able to at least kind of helping people to understand that this cycle of rebirth is something that the Buddha taught. And he taught it for a reason, because if you're training your mind and you're experiencing the elimination of this pollution, and this pollution's coming out of your mind more and more, you might actually start remembering your past lives. And if you didn't understand that that's what that was, it could really shake you up. So for example, if you're training your mind and you're getting this pollution out of your mind and you're starting to have vivid memories of being murdered, and it just keeps reoccurring in your mind over and over and over and over again, and you didn't know that was your past life and you could just leave that behind, it could really shake you up that you keep having these residual memories of being murdered over and over and over and over again. So the Buddha taught this because this is true. This is the way that the world actually works. And by you understanding that, it'll actually help you to be able to be more peaceful, more joyful. You'll be able to have a more stable mind. And some people can actually see these beings from these other realms. They can actually see beings in the hell realm or the afflicted spirit realm or the heavenly realm. Even though they're formless beings, they don't have physical form, some people can actually see them. Because people think about these beings as being in some far distant land somewhere, like maybe the heavenly realm is way up in the sky somewhere really far, or the hell realm is deep down in the core of the earth. But this isn't actually true. All these beings are in the same time and space. So people can actually see these beings, some of them. Some people can even hear these beings and have communication with these beings. They're all in the same time and space. Because like right now, there's a human being sitting here in this chair. If I got up and left, there could be an animal that comes and sits here, like a squirrel or a cockroach or a dog could come and sit here. We're all in the same time and space. Same thing is true about these other realms as well. So it's helpful for you to be able to understand what the Buddha is teaching, not only because this is the cycle of rebirth and it'll help you to experience more stability in your mind. This is the way that the world truly works, but it also helps you to understand what you're trying to accomplish on this journey to enlightenment as you're becoming a better and better human being. What you're doing is you're shedding these animalistic instincts that oftentimes in the unenlightened state, we function very much like animals. And what you're doing is you're becoming a better and better human being by getting to enlightenment. And by understanding that and seeing the reason why this is the case, it can actually help you and focus you on what it is that you're trying to accomplish by training your mind to get to enlightenment. So I'm going to help you guys to see how what you've been experiencing is multiple existences. And now that you're in this human realm, it's another opportunity for you to be able to cultivate wisdom and become a better and better being. So I'm going to pause a few times and open up for questions. If you have questions here at the temple, we have microphones in the white bowls. You guys can get a microphone and press the gray button. Then we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then you can keep these microphones with you because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share it with them. And if you're not using it, if you could turn it off, that'll be helpful so we don't get feedback through the speakers. And then for anybody online, you can actually put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, and I'll be able to see that. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and ask any and all questions that you like that way. So to understand this evolution of your consciousness of moving from the animal realm to the human realm, it's helpful to first understand the problems that you experience in the mind in the unenlightened state. These are things that I've actually already taught as part of this program, because now we're in chapter 20. But what I'm going to do is just do a little recap here, because some of you guys didn't study that with me when I was teaching that. And some of you did. Maybe some of you guys are online. Some of you that are here, you might have already studied the things that I taught in this program. But so this will be a good refresh for for you. So what the unenlightened mind has is it has certain pollutions in the mind. And we refer to these as the three poisons or the three unwholesome roots or the three fires when we're talking about it from a high level. This is craving, anger, and ignorance. But when we talk about it on a more detailed level, it's the 10 fetters. What craving, anger, and ignorance is this is the mind's pollution. This is the mind experiencing difficulties and struggles because of these pollutions in the mind. What the Buddha's teachings are based in is you not believing what I share. So I'm going to explain to you guys what these pollutions are. And because your mind actually has these in the unenlightened state, you'll be able to see that what I'm describing for you is what you're actually experiencing on a day-to-day basis. That's how you independently verify what I'm teaching is true. So for example, the mind has this craving or desire or attachment. This is the mind's longing, yearning. This is the mind chasing after the objects of its affection, thinking that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. It's almost like a dog chasing a squirrel or a fox chasing a rabbit. That's what the mind does in the unenlightened state as a human being. You have this mind where it's longing, yearning, and chasing after the objects of your affection. And you can only be happy if you get what you want. And then if you get what you want, you feel really happy and excited about that. But if you don't get what you want, you feel angry or sad or frustrated. The mind in the unenlightened state is craving permanence. It's thinking that something external is going to provide lasting satisfaction, so the mind will chase it and chase it and chase it. It's like the mind thinks, what is going to make me feel better here? More money. That'll fix everything. Let me get some more money. So the mind will chase after that for a while. And if you get it, you'll be really happy, but then eventually those feelings will fade away. And if you don't get it, you'll be angry or frustrated. And then the mind's like, what do I need to feel better? A new boyfriend, a new girlfriend, that'll fix everything. Let me get one of those. So now you might chase after that for a while. And again, if you get a boyfriend or girlfriend, you'll be really happy and excited about that, but that'll eventually fade away too. And you'll be angry and frustrated again. And if you don't get your boyfriend or girlfriend, then you'll be angry or frustrated about that. So the mind's just constantly seeking satisfaction externally. For example, if you wake up in the morning and you see it's sunny outside, you'll get really happy and excited about that. That's called conditional happiness, that based on some condition, you will experience happiness. But the problem with that is that condition is not permanent. Everything in the world around you is impermanent. It's constantly changing. So if you base your inner feelings on something external and you get happy because it's sunny, that means you can only be happy when it's sunny. When it switches to rain, you'll be sad or frustrated or annoyed. Or if you get really happy when your bank account balance is up here, that means when it goes down here, you'll be sad or frustrated. All that's happened here is change. That's all that's happened. But the mind craves permanence. So the mind can only be happy when it's getting what it wants. This is because of craving, desire, attachment. The people in the unenlightened state will think that the reason why you get angry is because of others. You might think your mom and dad are making you angry, or your brothers and sisters are annoying you, or your boss is frustrating you. This isn't true. The mind isn't actually experiencing these feelings based on other people. It's based on what's going on in your own mind. It's the mind's craving and longing, yearning. It's not about blame or fault or anything like that. It's just about seeing true reality and seeing what's truly occurring. What's truly occurring is the mind is longing, yearning, and it can only be happy when it gets what it wants. This is the craving for permanence, that the mind craves permanence while it lives in an impermanent world. So you need to independently verify this and see it for yourself. Take a recent situation where you've been angry or frustrated. Might have been this morning or yesterday or last week. Look at that situation. What was it that you wanted? What were you longing, yearning for? And if you would have gotten it, you would have been happy or excited. But because you didn't get what you wanted, your mind was angry or sad or frustrated. If you can see this, you can have a real breakthrough to being able to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, that it's not the outside world. Because what the mind will do when it doesn't understand that it's causing its own discontent feelings, you'll firmly believe it's something external, and you'll tend to push people away out of your life. You might have pushed away friends or family, thinking that that's going to solve the problem. But you can see that that didn't solve the problem, because when you push people out of your life, If they were the true cause of your problem, you would be peaceful and joyful from that point forward. But when you push them out of your life, you still get angry, you still get irritated, you still get annoyed. The second thing you'll do when you don't understand that it's your own mind causing these feelings and this anger is arising is you'll tend to be bitter and harsh and hostile with people. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another being, trying to fear it into doing things your way. It's like, right? And now the third thing that an individual will do when they don't understand that it's your own mind causing these feelings is you'll tend to put your expectations on people, try to pressure them to do things your way. So as long as you're pushing people away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile, or putting your expectations on people, try to force them to do things your way, you can't live harmoniously with all beings, because it's only a matter of time before you encounter someone who does things differently than you. So the mind's craving is leading to the point where you can only be happy when you get what you want, but you can't always get what you want. And then when this anger and frustration is arising, the mind will firmly believe it's something external, and now it'll push away, be bitter, harsh, and hostile, or put expectations on people and try to pressure them or control them. And where this is all coming from is this third one. Some people refer to it as ignorance, so I still use that so that people can understand. But a better way to think about it is the unknowing of true reality, or the lack of wisdom. Because an enlightened being wouldn't refer to someone as ignorant. That's like a derogatory, degrading way to refer to someone. So when people are translating from the words of the Buddha in the original language that the teachings are captured in into English, they're using words in some cases that aren't actually accurate for the way that an enlightened being speaks. Because the Buddha wouldn't have called someone ignorant or stupid or foolish. Instead, he would have said things like a lack of wisdom or misunderstanding or confusion or misperception, because the mind in the unenlightened state just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. It will firmly believe that it's other people that are causing you to be angry. That's part of this ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality. But when you look at this closely, you can see that it's your own craving that's producing your anger. So while we call it craving, anger, and ignorance, it's really because of ignorance that craving and anger continues in the mind. If it wasn't for this ignorance, then the craving would have actually already been eliminated and the anger would have been eliminated. So the way that you eliminate this is you cultivate wisdom. That's why you don't believe anything on the path to enlightenment, because with belief you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because somebody convinced you to believe it, or you convinced yourself to believe it. So you need to get to the point where you learn, examine, and investigate teachings. You reflect on them to verify if they're true or false, and then you practice them, integrating them into your day-to-day life, and now making decisions through that intellectual understanding, and now you'll actually cultivate wisdom. So this craving, anger, and ignorance is the way that an animal functions. And that's the way the human mind functions in the unenlightened state. But we're not animals. We're human beings. We can evolve beyond this, where we're not chasing and chasing and chasing. And we're not being bitter and harsh and hostile, growling and roaring at other beings. We can cultivate wisdom to be able to completely transform the mind away from this. There's some other things in the mind related to the animal world that are keeping the mind in this unenlightened state, continuing to experience certain difficulties and struggles. For example, this personal existence view and conceit. This is a deeper level of detail than the 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots. This is part of what's called the 10 fetters, these 10 individual pollutions that are in the mind. The personal existence view is where the mind has this misunderstanding or this confusion, thinking that this body or this mind is you. So what the mind will do is it'll tend to cling to your self-image or your self-identity, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way, and you can only be happy if you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived. So for example, if you've ever spelt something on your clothing and you were in a social situation and you were embarrassed by that, that's your personal existence view. Your mind's clinging to the body, the self-image, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way, and you can't feel comfortable unless you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived. With clean clothes, you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived. But with spaghetti sauce all over your shirt, now you feel embarrassed because maybe you think, oh, they're going to think I'm a slob, right? And now you don't feel comfortable in that situation. Or maybe you looked in the mirror and you saw a pimple or a wrinkle or a mole or a gray hair, or you started losing your hair and you were shaken up by that, that was your personal existence view, clinging to this body, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way, and you could only feel comfortable if you're being perceived that way. Or maybe you stood in front of your closet and you thought, who am I going to see today, and how do I want to look? And you might have put on certain clothes and looked in the mirror, and you're like, no, I don't feel comfortable going outside like that. And you put on another set of clothes, and you're like, no, I don't want to go outside like that. And you put on a third set of clothes, and you're like, all right, now I feel comfortable to go outside. This is your personal existence view. It's related to the body, but it's also related to the mind. You can hold a certain self-identity of who you think you are as a person based on your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, or your job or occupation. And now if you cling to any of that as who you think you are, now you can only be comfortable with people perceiving you the way you want to be perceived. So, for example, if in your mind you're clinging to the idea of I am American, or I am Chinese, or I am Burmese, or Myanmar, I'm from Myanmar, or I'm German or Spanish, or any of this I am. Well, if 2 tables over, people are talking really nice and really fondly about the place where you come from, you'll be really happy. Right? Maybe they're saying all Americans are lovely and kind and warm and gentle. You might hear that. And now if your mind thinks I am American, now you're going to be really happy about that. But then it's only a matter of time before 2 tables over, somebody says something degrading or disparaging about your nationality. And now when they say all Americans are blah, 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 blah. And if you identify that way in your mind as who you are, you're going to be angry. You're going to be frustrated. So you can't be peaceful and joyful as long as this personal existence view is in the mind. You might have been in a relationship with someone where you thought, I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, I am a husband, I am a wife. And now when you guys were together in a relationship, you had a certain amount of comfort. But when you guys broke up, you didn't identify with I am single, and you felt uncomfortable perhaps being single. And now you might have tried to hurry up and get right back into another relationship so you could reassume that role of I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend. But that doesn't actually solve your problem. It's the personal existence view that the mind is clinging to, this idea that I am a boyfriend, I'm a girlfriend. It's clinging to this, thinking that that should be permanent. And now when you're not in a relationship, when you're single, your mind feels uncomfortable with that. And it feels like it wants to hurry up and get right back into another relationship. So in the animal world, we needed this personal existence view. For example, if I'm a deer, I need to know I am a deer and that is a tiger, and I need to run, right? Because that tiger is going to attack me and kill me. And they're operating based on that fear. But as human beings, we don't actually need that. We can actually cultivate wisdom, and we can understand, that's a tiger. Let me get out of here. And now we can start to move, right? So this personal existence view stands in your way of being peaceful and joyful, and it's motivating animalistic behaviors. And same thing with this conceit. Conceit is where you're measuring and comparing people, putting yourself above them or below them, thinking that you're superior or inferior to other people. And then when you're around people who you think are below you, you might talk down to those people. And then when you're around people who you think are above you, your mind's kind of shaken up and you're kind of looking up to them in awe. What this is the mind's trying to find a pecking order and trying to figure out where am I in this pecking order. And now if you talk down to people and you think you're above them and you're superior, they're going to sense that, and they're not going to be interested in being around you, and they're going to push you away, and it's going to damage your relationships. But if you put yourself below people, this is just as dangerous, because now when you put yourself below people, you're all shaken up. So when you go into your boss's office, for example, if you think they're above you, now you're all shaken up, and your boss doesn't have confidence that you're going to do a good job on this project. And now your career will suffer. So you need to be able to get to the point where you treat everybody equally. But that's very difficult to do while you have this conceit in your mind, because you're going to constantly be measuring and comparing, thinking of yourself as being above people or below people. So what you would like to get to is when you see somebody out on the street who's sweeping the street, you can say, hello, sir. Hello, ma'am. Good morning. How are you? And you can be respectful and polite to them. And then when you see the king of Thailand, or the Queen of Thailand, walking down the street, which I don't think you'll see, but if you see that, you can say, hello, sir, hello, ma'am, good morning, how are you? You can just treat everybody equally. You can treat them all the same. Whereas if your mind's having to constantly figure out who's above me and who's below me, because I treat these people one way and I treat these people a different way, and now your mind's having to constantly figure that out, it puts a lot of exhaustion in your mind. It puts a burden on your mind. Where this is coming from is, once again, in the animal existences. We actually needed conceit as an animal. We needed a pecking order. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't have survived. So as a wolf, when we were in a pack of wolves, we needed to know who's the alpha male, who's the alpha female, because they're teaching us how to hunt. They're going to teach us how to survive as a pack of wolves. Or when we were a herd of elephants, we needed to know who's the matriarch of our herd, because she's going to show us where the food is, where the watering holes are, where the migration paths are. If we didn't know who the matriarch of our herd was and who was above us, we would just be a roaming elephant out in the jungle, not being able to survive. So in the animal world, we needed this strong pecking order in order to be able to survive. But when we come into this human world, our mind tends to retain that, and it makes it very difficult for us because we're constantly measuring and comparing of being above people or below people, and we're either talking down to people or we're talking up to people, and we're shaken up, and it affects us in our personal and professional life. So you can actually get rid of this, which is what I taught a couple of weeks ago. I taught this, how to eliminate the ego. So your current life and your previous lives are conditioning the mind, where the mind is absorbing certain ways of being, and this pollution continues to stick around. So each one of these existences that you're having is another opportunity for you to learn, grow, and develop, and become a better and better being. There's this cycle of rebirth that the Buddha taught, where there's this continuous rebirth, which you might think about this as continuous opportunities to cultivate wisdom about this world that you live in, so that you can become a better and better being. So I'm going to talk now about the 5 realms of existence and help you guys to understand what this is. But before I do that, I would like to pause and see if you have any questions on this here, because this is helping you to understand the animal kind of world and where the unenlightened mind is picking this stuff up from. But after I teach the 5 realms of existence, I'm going to circle back and I'm going to help you understand more about why the mind is experiencing this and some of the challenges that you're experiencing and how to actually shed some of this stuff. So do you guys have any questions on these problems that are in the mind? I don't see any questions anywhere. Okay, so I'm going to teach you about these 5 realms of existence. But like I said at the beginning, you should never believe any of the teachings of the Buddha. He taught that there's a hell realm, an animal realm, afflicted spirits, which are ghosts. He taught that there's a human realm and that there's the heavenly realm. These can actually be independently verified. You might not have the wisdom of how to do that right now, but as you progress on the path, you can actually independently verify these things. For some of you, if you're just starting out on the path, what I share with you about these 5 realms might just be something that you kind of catalog in the mind. You're like, okay, I understand this is what the Buddha is teaching, but now you're going to focus on things like the 4 Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts, meditation training, and these kinds of things. But here it helps you to be able to at least understand these things, because as you're training your mind with those core teachings, if you start having situations where you're remembering your past lives, this will help you to understand the reason why. Or if you start being able to see beings that are actually in one of these realms, like hell realm, afflicted spirit, and heavenly realm, even though they're formless, some people can actually see these beings. Then you'll understand and your mind won't be shaken up. Or if you start having communication with these beings and your mind won't be shaken up, it'll really help you to at least know that these things are what the Buddha taught, because he's explaining to you that this is the way the world is. But don't ever believe what it is that you're learning here. So I'm going to help you to understand this, but you might just catalog it as, okay, that's interesting information, and now I'm just going to stay focused on learning the core teachings of the Buddha. So here, the heavenly realm, this is a formless realm where these beings don't have physical form. They experience exclusively pleasant feelings. They don't experience painful feelings, or neither painful nor pleasant feelings. They can cultivate their consciousness to attain enlightenment, but they tend to lack motivation. because they're experiencing such pleasant feelings. So they don't tend to be motivated to actually learn and grow and develop and actually get to enlightenment. This realm, just like all the other realms, they are not permanent. Oftentimes people are taught that the heavenly realm is a permanent realm. But if you look in the world around you, you can see the universal truth of impermanence, that things are constantly changing, and that this isn't a permanent existence in the heavenly realm. That oftentimes people think the goal is to be a really good person in this life, and then you're going to die and live in this eternal life in heaven. That's not what the teachings of the Buddha are. You can see that the world is full of impermanence. The same thing is true about all these realms, that things are constantly changing. So these beings in the heavenly realm, they're still in the cycle of rebirth. It's not a permanent existence, and they're going to need to still get to enlightenment. They can easily be reborn down into the other realms. Just because they're in the heavenly realm doesn't mean that they're going to stay there. They can actually be reborn into the hell realm, the animal realm, the afflicted spirit realm, in the human realm, or back into the heavenly realm. Then there's the human realm. In the human realm, you're probably most familiar with this because you're experiencing that now. These beings experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant feelings. They have physical form, and they're capable of actually getting to enlightenment. They have the ability to cultivate their consciousness to the point of getting to enlightenment. But they oftentimes are also even having a lack of motivation. They have more motivation than the heavenly beings, but we might consider the human realm as the ideal existence because we experience the painful feelings. We experience the neither painful nor pleasant feelings in the human realm. So we tend to have built-in motivation because we don't like those painful feelings. We don't like those neither painful nor pleasant feelings, like the anger, the sadness, the frustration, the embarrassment, the disappointment, the uncomfortableness. The human being doesn't like that, so they're usually looking for some solution of how to fix it. So they tend to have more motivation, but even in the human realm, you can be complacent, where people can hear the teachings of the Buddha and they can understand the Four Noble Truths, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, and they still do nothing about it. They still don't actually train their mind to actually improve it. So in this realm, you can get to enlightenment. There is more motivation than the heavenly realm, but there can still be complacency here too. You might consider this to be the ideal existence in the human realm. Then there's the afflicted spirits realm. This is another formless realm. Some people might refer to this as ghosts because that's what these beings are, is they're actually ghosts or afflicted spirits. They experience painful feelings and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant, and they can't cultivate their mind enough to be able to get to enlightenment, but they can cultivate their mind enough to be able to get to another existence, like a human existence or heavenly existence. But if they're not doing that, they can actually be reborn into the animal realm or the hell realm, or even back into the afflicted spirit realm. They have extensive amounts of craving, desire, attachment to people, places, and possessions. This is where somebody might say, my house is haunted. Well, that's not really true. What's really actually happening is there was a being that used to live there, perhaps, or was associated with that structure, and now their mind is clinging and craving, and they don't want to let go. And even in this next existence, in the ghost, in this afflicted spirit realm, they're continuing to hold on, and they're continuing to linger in that area. So that's what's really occurring. So this particular realm, the beings can't get to enlightenment, but they can train their mind enough, at least cultivating it to the point of moving up, or again, they can also move down if they don't actually train their mind. Then there's the animal realm. You guys are probably familiar with this. They have physical form. They do experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. They can't cultivate their mind enough to get to enlightenment, but they can train their mind enough to be able to, once again, move up, or if they don't actually train their mind, they can actually move down here as well. So these beings are oftentimes functioning on basic human instincts. Basic survival instincts. Like an animal will kill, they will play, they will fight, they will sleep, they will have sex. This is what animals are doing just all day long. They're doing these kinds of things, just kind of like looking out for their basic survival. So this particular realm is not desirable as well, just like the afflicted spirit realm. And then there's the hell realm. These beings experience exclusively painful feelings, where they don't experience pleasant feelings or neither painful nor pleasant feelings, just painful feelings. They can't cultivate their consciousness to be able to get to enlightenment, and they have extensive amounts of craving, anger, and this ignorance or this unknowing of true reality. So these 5 realms are the realms that beings are being reborn in and out of. If you study the teachings of the Buddha in various places, you'll see people talk about other numbers, but the Buddha only ever taught 5 realms. You'll see people talk about 6 realms or 8 realms, 9 realms, 32 realms. You'll see all kinds of things like this. But if you study the original words of the Buddha, he only taught these 5. And these are the 5 that you can independently verify. If you've had experiences with beings in these realms, then you know that what I'm teaching is the truth. For example, my son, he came home about a year ago and he said, "Dad, I need to talk to you." I said, "Okay, what's going on?" He said, "Well, I was on the motorbike with Mom and we were coming back from the mall, and there was this person standing in the middle of the street wearing all red, and Mom rode her motorbike right through this person, and they didn't get injured or anything. Mom just drove right through this person. Was that the afflicted spirit realm that the Buddha is talking about?" And I said, "Yeah, that's the afflicted spirit realm, son." He said, "Oh, okay, thanks, Dad. I was just checking. I would just like to make sure." Right? So his mind was completely stable. It was steady. He wasn't upset. He didn't have difficulty sleeping. He didn't have nightmares or anything like that. He just understand, like, yeah, this is normal. This is the way the world works. So if you've had these types of experiences, then you've verified perhaps some of these things. If you haven't had these experiences, then you haven't verified these yet, and that's okay. But at least you'll understand that these exist. So that if you ever have one of these experiences, you can just understand that that's normal, that it's a normal part of life. So that's why the Buddha taught this, because this is actually the way the world is. So do you guys have any questions on these 5 realms of existence? Anything you'd like to ask? Okay, we have some questions coming in here on Zoom. Okay, so it says, "Hello, Teacher David. I have a couple of questions. Can you rebirth into a time in the past or future?" The answer to that is no, because there's only right now. There is no parallel universe for the past or parallel universe for the future. You're actually experiencing right now. So if there's going to be birth, it's going to be right now in the present moment. And now if this being dies, then there's a period of time in between births. It's not like you're immediately reborn. And now as that consciousness exists in the world, eventually it's going to need to find a new existence, and then it will be reborn in the future, but not the future in terms of like some parallel universe or something like that. So it's always right now in the present moment that a being is being born. Can you help afflicted spirits, animals, or hell beings to move on to the next realm? The only thing you can do to help them is, like, if those beings are around, like say like an afflicted spirit is in your home, you might just talk to it and just be like, "Hey, you can move on now. You don't need to hold on to this particular house," or something like this. You can't truly do the work for them, but you can just talk to them, like an animal, for example. Like there's this rat that was in Cambodia, and they trained this rat to be able to sniff out landmines, because the rat was real light and it could walk over the surface of the earth and it could find landmines. And it ended up finding about 100 landmines during its life. It was alive for about 6 years before it died. So in that 6-year period, it found 100 landmines. That was really helpful for that rat. It was practicing generosity. It was practicing loving kindness. It was practicing compassion. And these human beings help that animal to be able to train it to be able to do this. And of course, this animal helped the humans as well. So we can do those kinds of things, but you shouldn't take that as an obligation of something that you're going to burden yourself with, because you really need to focus on your own enlightenment. Each individual being needs to be able to focus on their own enlightenment. And of course, animals don't even know that that is an option. These heavenly beings, these afflicted spirits and hell beings may not even know that's an option. So while we can help beings as we see that they need help, and we might choose to practice generosity, always prioritize your own growth and your own development on the path, because by you getting closer and closer to enlightenment, then you'll actually be able to help other beings when they actually do need help. So while that is possible, don't make that your first priority. Okay. I don't see any other questions anywhere here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to helping you to understand how beings actually experience this understanding of their past lives. Okay, so if a being is coming out of their house, like a human being comes out of their house, and they're on a particular street, they might look left, they might look right, and what they see is they see the street that they're on, right? This is like being in the unenlightened state, is that you can really see the life that you're currently in. You can kind of see like the last maybe 5 or 10 years fairly well of what you've been doing in your life over the last 5 or 10 years. And that's like coming out of your house and you're just on the street that you're on. But if you train your mind and you're getting rid of this pollution, you're moving to this higher consciousness, you're moving to a higher vantage point, much like these people here, that they've moved to this higher vantage point. And now they don't just see the street that they live on, but they can see all the other streets in the town, and they can even see how one town connects to another town because they're at a higher vantage point. So they have a better view of being able to see all of this. So the same thing is happening when you're training your mind, that in the unenlightened state, when your mind's polluted, it's burdened, it's bogged down, and all you can see is the street that you're on, the life that you're currently in. But when you're training your mind and you're getting rid of these pollutions, you're moving to this higher consciousness, to this higher vantage point where you can see more of your current life, and in some cases, your past life too. Not everybody who gets to enlightenment will see their past lives, but some people will. And this is how it actually happens. Okay? So now to talk about this evolution of your consciousness from the animal to human realm is the vast majority of births into the human realm are occurring out of the animal realm. This is why some beings, they might come into this world. Let's just say that they were a tiger in the past and they were doing lots of killing, right? And now when they come into this particular life in the human realm, they might actually still have that craving to kill. And someone might start killing and being a serial murderer or something like that. But you can also have beings that come out of the heavenly realm as well. And when they come into the world, they're more nice, they're more kind, they're more peaceful and joyful. So your mind is being conditioned on your past existences. Whatever you experienced in your past lives, your current mind is based on that. There's certain conditioning that your mind is experiencing because of that. The unenlightened human mind functions very much like an animal's mind. Like an animal's mind lacks memory. Just like the unenlightened human mind, it usually lacks memory. The animals function on a praise and reward system. So for example, if you have an animal and it does a certain behavior and you praise it and reward it with food, it will tend to repeat that same behavior over and over again. Human beings function the same way. That's why we get diplomas and degrees. That's why we get a promotion at work and we get more money, because they're trying to reward us or praise us for a certain behavior. And now they want us to do that behavior more frequently. That's the same thing that an animal experiences. Even though we're not animals, our mind functions very much like that in the unenlightened state. We also learn from a pack of like species. You know, a monkey learns how to be a monkey from other monkeys. A snake learns how to be a snake from other snakes. There are certain instinctive behaviors that we have, but many of our behaviors are learned behaviors. That's why if you grew up around adults who were bitter and harsh and hostile, your mind was conditioned that way to a certain degree, to be bitter and harsh and hostile. Whereas if you grew up around people who are more loving and more kind and warm and gentle, your mind's going to understand that, and you're going to start practicing more of those types of things. So the unenlightened mind functions very much like an animal. We even have words and phrases that we say that are helping us to be able to see this. Like if two people are arguing or something like this, we might say, "You're fighting like cats and dogs," right? In the unenlightened state, two people arguing and fighting, we'll say, "You're fighting like cats and dogs," because in the unenlightened human state, people are functioning very much like an animal. Or you might say that you're acting like an animal. If somebody's, being very fierce and very aggressive and very bitter and hostile, you might say you're acting like an animal. Right? So even though people don't understand necessarily what it is that I'm teaching until they've actually learned it, people still have these phrases that they're using in order to talk about these kinds of things. In fact, human beings are very fascinated with animals. We're so fascinated with animals that we actually have animals in our homes, some of us, right? And we invite them into our bed to be able to sleep with us. right? We go to the zoo to be able to look at animals, right? When we're growing up as children, we have stuffed animals, right? Some people even wear animal skin like leather, or some people wear animal furs. And if you're not wearing the actual animal fur, some people actually have prints like fabrics that have been made into looking like the print of an animal, because we're so fascinated with animals, because we were animals in so many existences in the past. Our mind was conditioned that way. So the animal consciousness is preoccupied with this craving, anger, and ignorance, and so is the unenlightened human mind, until we actually train it otherwise. So we can actually train our mind to evolve from this animal consciousness into this human consciousness to have a better and better existence where we overcome the difficulties and struggles of the animal world. What we're doing on this path to enlightenment is we're shedding our animalistic instincts, where two animals, they will fight until death. The unenlightened human mind will essentially do the same thing. Right? If you've ever been in a knockdown, drag out argument with like a boyfriend or girlfriend, you probably felt like you were fighting to death. That's essentially what the mind's doing. But there are human beings that will literally fight and kill each other until death, right? It's the same thing that an animal will do. But you need to be able to shed those animalistic instincts where you can become a better and better human being, where you can be loving and kind and warm and gentle with everybody around you. You have the capability of doing that now, where in the animal realm, you couldn't do that. But now in the human realm, you can get to a point where you have love and kindness for every single being that you encounter. You just need to train your mind to be able to do it, to be able to shed these animalistic instincts. But if you don't cultivate the wisdom of how to do it, you'll continue to function like an animal in that unenlightened human state. So getting to enlightenment will end this constant cycle of rebirth where you're being reborn over and over and over again, because you've cultivated the needed wisdom that you need in this world, and now you can escape out of this cycle of rebirth. So individuals are either walking towards the light, becoming a better and better human being, or they're choosing to walk towards the darkness, being more and more disgruntled, more and more frustrated, more agitated and annoyed. Which direction you walk, whether you walk towards the darkness or towards the light, that's a choice for you to make, right? Each of us are making choices for our own life, and we will experience the results of those decisions. If we continue to function like animals, then that's what we're going to experience. But we can choose to evolve to a higher consciousness and function like a better and better human being. And that's what the Buddha is teaching you how to be able to do, is to shed these animalistic instincts, becoming a better and better human being. Because we are not animals, we are human beings. We have a capability here to be able to train our mind to get to enlightenment that animals don't have. So this is everything that I have to share with you guys. Do you have any questions on anything I've been talking about? Anything you'd like to ask? You're welcome. Pleased to help you. Okay, I don't see any questions anywhere. You have a question? Yes, sir. Once you press the button, if you see the lights come on.
Hello.
There you go.
So I just want to ask a question based on my personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
I just lost one of my family members. The day after he passed away, the day after, early in the morning, a butterfly came toward me and stayed on my leg for 2.5 minutes, which never happened before. So I try to believe it's as a rebirth or something. But however, he just passed away. The day after he just passed away, so it's too quick. However, I tried to gather the other factor, like he was in coma for 10 days. So should I hold on to this idea or?
Rebirth doesn't happen that quick.
Okay.
So I've seen past lives, and from one life to the next, I saw as short as 500 years. in as long as 2,000 years. So I'm sure people can be reborn sooner than 500 and probably later than 2,000, but that's the window of time that I saw between these births. So it takes a lot more time, and especially like a butterfly, because they have to first become, a larvae, they have to become a caterpillar, then they have to be a butterfly. So it would take a while before that all occurs. So what you need to be able to do is let go of your family member, because your mind's going to hold on to that individual because the mind craves permanence. You need to be able to understand that and appreciate that the time that you had with them, but then now they're done. Their life is over. You're never going to see them in that configuration ever again with that body and that mind. And your mind just needs to let go, because the mind will try to grasp and hold on to these things, and you're not going to be able to experience complete peace and complete joy as long as your mind holds on. So you can have memories of this person that was in your life and have appreciation and gratitude, but it's when you hold on and you're kind of looking for these types of things that maybe they've come back into your life, that the mind is going to be burdened with this attachment, and you'd like to be able to let that go.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And another question is, recently I got 2 dreams. I believe dreams are just my mind, some sort of affected by the other thoughts. However, the first dream, he came and just told me how he is lonely in the other world or something. And another dream, he was so indifferent toward me, and sometimes I feel like it's just my mind tricking on me, or is this a sign, some sort of sign from him or something?
Yeah, it's important to understand that dreams aren't true reality, that your mind is very powerful, and it's also very creative. So it can dream about any number of things, and you don't have any control over that, and neither does anybody else. Nobody else can control that either. So when you have dreams, it's important just to move on. When you wake up and you realize, like, oh, wow, that was a dream. Okay, move on, because that wasn't true reality. The one thing that dreams can kind of give you insight to, like if you keep having recurring dreams, that can show you that your mind has certain attachments, certain cravings that you need to be able to let go of. That's going to help you to be able to get to enlightenment. Or say you have like a dream of dying and you wake up and you're fearful of that. Well, you can see that you have fear of death, and there's ways for you to train your mind to get rid of that. So it's best to just move on from your dreams. Don't look at them as true reality, but sometimes they can be insightful to help you be able to see what cravings, desires, attachments you have in your mind, so that now outside of the dream, you can actually work on that and get rid of those cravings, desires, attachments, so that you can get closer and closer to enlightenment. You'll see this if you look in this first book in the frequently asked questions section, because this is a frequently asked question. So I talk about dreams in there. Mm-hmm. Yep, you're welcome. Okay, I don't see any questions anywhere else. So what I'll do then is just end by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and understand the teachings of the Buddha. I'll be teaching again next on Wednesday. If you guys would like to come in on Wednesday, you're more than welcome to do that. I teach all throughout the week, all throughout the month. You can see it on our bulletin board over there. You can also see it on our website as well. You can also come talk to me, and I can help you get plugged into the teachings to be able to understand how to really get started on the path to enlightenment. Next week, we're going to be in chapter 21, which is titled it's about our planet, and it's going to be more of a discussion as opposed to me teaching. So you'll see how I do this next week. So whatever you guys do for the rest of the day, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Perhaps we'll see you next time. Take care. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.